All right, welcome to Moto Metrics. This is the LITPro team. We're bringing you Moto Metrics. This is not a podcast. We're just trying to help get the Moto Metrics stats out there in the most easy to consume way possible, and we're giving this a try. So we got Arich Knaub, who does most of the writing and the deep statistical work on bringing that blog post together, and Brandon and I help produce it. And so yeah, this is the LITPro team. And so let's start by, we're going to share assets as we go, but we're going to start by sharing the Moto Metrics blog post, which is the subject matter here. And we'll start with Arich. Let's go through the highlights.
Yeah, of course. All this data comes from live timing that is out on the SMX live timing website. And so each week we just try to dive in and kind of understand where riders are fastest, what they're doing different, things like that. So jumping off right away, we found Webb's secret weapon. We finally had just a corner for a sector time, which might not seem like a big deal. But what ended up happening is that we found that Webb and Deegan both were really fast in this one bull corner. And if we presume that they can kind of carry that speed through the rest of the bull corners around the track, that's where some of these guys are making up 1/10, 2/10 of a second every single lap. And all they're doing is right in the corners. So that was big takeaway number one, was that we found that corner speed that those guys had, particularly when we look at like Webb versus Roczen was like 0.5 per lap in that one bull corner. So yeah, Webb super fast in the corner. Deegan same way. He was like 0.02 seconds per lap faster in that bull corner than anyone else all night. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it does add up over the course of an entire race. Speaking of Deegan, go ahead.
I think it's crazy that we have guys that we watch on the races that we can tell that's like blazing fast speed, and to know that it's only 0.02 seconds that is what we're picking up on visually is also pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy because we all know Deegan has crazy corner speed, but then knowing how little time it is, but it adds up over the course of an entire lap. If there's 10 bull corners, that's a 0.2 of a second advantage.
Yeah, and we caught this this bull corner sector, like sector 8 was bull corner only, which is what I was trying to show over here. That would be awesome if Feld did that every time, because that timing of just one corner brings so much knowledge or so much insight into the overall analytics. I know I really liked it, and we did a little T-shirt giveaway for whoever could guess the best time in there, and somebody won. So pretty cool.
Is that the first time we've seen that? That's the first time this season we've seen that.
That's the first time to my knowledge that we've had that, and I have to imagine it's a new timing vendor. They have like 9 or 10 sectors, and they've been trying to keep the whoops as their own sector, sand as its own sector. And so if they have to chop up the weird and have like a little gate, they've done it. We've seen it this year where a triple is its own gate. We've had the finish line be its own gate, like landing, because they landed right into sand at Tampa. And now this week we've seen it where they wanted to cut the whoops off before the corner. So it was just the whoops plus that little wheel tap triple.
Yeah, and they brought that whoops speed or that whoop time into the broadcast show a little bit. I hope they do this. We were trying to do ping or to tag or Supercross Live. They should do this every time. It's pretty cool. So
yeah, they definitely should. It brings a lot of insights during the race. Going through the rest of these highlights here, I think we were all kind of disappointed how Cole Davies' night went until he won that last moto. But, Star Racing Yamaha has some serious firepower between Deegan and Davies. There was 38 timed lap times, and those two set 27 of the fastest lap times in the 250 class. Deegan set 18 of them on his own, doing combat rides in both the first two races. I don't think he really was pushing at that third race. I think he let Davies go out and have that win just because, Davies was so far removed from the conversation that he didn't need to prove anything. Unlike we saw with Chase trying to prove that he had the speed, and that's where that third bullet point comes in, that speed kills. What was really crazy, I found this fact, and I texted Richard last night. I'm like, no way, dude. Sexton had the top LITPro consistency score of any rider. He's the only rider to score 90 in all 3 main events. And I was like, there's no way And then what we've seen happen, we saw it at Tampa, we saw it in Detroit, we've seen it now here in Arlington. Sexton, when he has a mistake or a mess up, it's like one lap. But that one lap just kills his whole race. If we remove in that third race his lap where he stalled it and his lap where he took himself out that last lap, his average lap time was within a second every single lap.
Yeah.
And so that's where we see him gaining time, because some of these other guys were slowing down from start to end of race by like 2 seconds, and Sexton was keeping it in a second time window, and that's where we see him contending late race. But it ended up costing him this week, unfortunately, like it has the last two.
Well, let's talk about that a second longer, just because while we're talking about consistency scores, LITPro consistency score, which we do a challenge for the entire LITPro community once a year in the middle of the year, typically focused just on consistency. This is when it's kind of hot outside and we just want, everybody should focus on consistency in their riding. But we kind of have a generous consistency scoring rule set that we use for Supercross. Is that correct, Arich?
No, I use the same one that is in the app.
Yeah, so we allow one throwaway lap.
Yep.
And so, that's what I'm saying. It's a kind of a generous rule, and it's maybe overly generous to someone like Sexton when it ruins his whole race.
Yeah. No, to a professional rider, throwing away their worst lap is kind of like a gimme. But then, in this race in particular, these were some of the lowest consistency scores that we've seen all season. So this just goes to show, when everyone's on the same level playing field, everyone gets their lap thrown out. And we see low consistency scores. That just shows how difficult this track was to maintain that time, which I think if we all get a throwaway lap and Sexton's still that much more consistent when you throw away his one bad lap, I think that just goes to show that he is that much better at navigating a rough track than a lot of other riders are.
Right. Definitely.
We've seen several races this year where the 450 class as a whole will average a 90 consistency score. And we've had at this race, there was 2 of the 3, their average was below 80 as a class. It was like 79.
That's a big drop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this was a tough course, tough track for the 450s. The 250s actually outperformed the 450 riders as a whole. When we look at consistency, there was 3 guys in the 250 class that had above a 90 in all 3 races.
So what do you think? What sections ruined it for him? What blew up consistency for the 450 guys in particular? And was it the same for the 250 guys? Do we have that?
Yeah, no. So that's in the 450s. It was the sand that blew up their consistency. That whole flat into sand, and then it was a flip flop. So the 2 that blew up consistency for the 450s were sand and then whoops, and then it was vice versa for the 250s. It was whoops and then sand. I think the 450s were just getting through that whoop section just a little bit cleaner due to that little extra horsepower. Those whoops started like immediately out of that corner. And so the 450s just were able to use that a little bit more of that torque to get the bike on top when they were still skimmable. And the 250s had to start jumping a lot earlier in the night. Heck, I think some of them just started jumping and qualifying and called it there.
If we want to talk about whoops, though, I thought Webb looked really fast jumping them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did.
He did.
Cooper did too for the longest time. There was the first half of that first race, he was able to hold off Roxton by jumping him. It didn't save him in the long run. He had to execute it perfectly, but I think jumping this section was a viable option. And then I really wish they would have had a camera on Barsha, because he had the fastest whoop times in the last 2 races, and I don't think anyone saw it. And I'm assuming he was skimming them. He's always been a skimmer, but I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Webb was matching Sexton in whoop speed time just by jumping through him versus Sexton. I don't know. He was skimming him. He was skimming him, dropping, jumping him, just however he could get through him.
Yeah,
and that's interesting too, because it did look like there was some inconsistency. So given his high consistency scores, that's an interesting fact too.
That's what's crazy when you look at these lap times. I see it all the time where you'll look at a guy's individual sector times and they're, this lap it's half a second slower. This lap it's almost a full second faster. And then you look at their overall lap time and they're within a tenth of a second.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's those little micro mistakes that we talk about when we're looking at vision where it's so hard to execute a flawless lap. I think that's why we see lap 99 times that are 2-3 seconds faster than their actual time, just because it's really hard for those guys to put it together that 100% level every single lap. But, they can do a 95% lap pretty consistently.
So, yeah, what else do we have on that front in the highlights? I think there's one more that we're...
The only highlight I haven't covered here was, I call it a monster lurking because Monster Energy Kawasaki's Jason Anderson just came out of nowhere the last 5 laps of the third race. He got into the tiff with Webb. He banged into Barsha and he got his written warning. And then, I don't know, he was able to put all that behind him and he got passed early on in the third race and then just came out of nowhere, got second. He set 5 fastest laps of the night. All 5 came in that third race. 3 in the last 3 of the 4 last laps. Just was super speedy. And so I think the highlight here is that Anderson might not be in the points battle, but you can expect him to play spoiler every single weekend.
Yeah, it makes it fun.
Yeah, it does.
That's just to know that's coming or could come at any moment. And
and maybe he did that little bit of a reset halfway through Arlington to just reset mentally, and he could come out swinging anytime, win races.
I wonder what activates Anderson. I don't, because sometimes he's there in such a dramatic way, and other times he's kind of not. I don't know. Maybe I'm.
No, I think that's it's kind of been. I think we talked about it the last round, but it's been kind of an up and down season. I think in general, he kind of has an on race and then an off race and an on race.
Yeah, and we saw that in a Triple Crown. It wasn't even consistent through the whole night, right? He had a meh race in the first one. He had a one to forget in the second one, and then he had a nearly won the third one.
Yeah. So maybe that's more of a progression, more of a building, just inside the Triple Crown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because he was taking seconds out of Webb's lead in the last 3 laps of that race.
So let me ask. Let's talk about. Actually, I don't want to move too quick, but let's talk about Roczen and Hill. Do we have any stats on Roczen and Hill that we can bring up? Because those two had surprisingly good nights for not being the ones that everybody's talking about, especially Roczen.
Yeah, if you want to go down to the lap time sections, that's a group of 3 tables.
There we go.
Yeah, so Justin Hill, so he was 5th fastest in the first main event, 4th fastest in the second one. He didn't make the cut on the third main event, but he was able to compete with the big dogs, so to speak, on his I'm going to say compared to a factory ride stock bike. Pretty effectively.
Do we have any? We have actually. For Vision, we could put together part of a lap, but the filming crew did not get his fastest lap, at least not that we were able to get. So It would be really interesting to break down. In fact, I was really hoping that we could break down Justin Hill and just see what he was doing to get that fastest lap. And we just don't have his fastest. Anyways, do we have any other data on Hill?
No, I mean he didn't make the lap time chart for average fastest lap time anywhere. Unfortunately, he was fast, but he was just lacking that little bit of extra. And then I'm wondering if that's because the factory teams go back and make little bike changes that Hill just can't make.
Yeah, I mean these are incredible stats though. 50.26 for average time. Fast time is he's just right there. This is the absolute fastest for this race, for example, is 48.61, and he got a 49.02.
Yeah,
so close.
Yeah. I mean, check it out in the first race. I mean, his fastest time was the 3rd fastest of the race.
Yeah, in that first main event.
Yeah, I mean, the first main event, the top 5 guys are all within 0.6 seconds of each other on average.
Yeah.
And so Hill is right there on a non-factory effort. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like, overall, like he was 4th or 5th, right? Overall for the day. Like that puts that he beat Barsha, Anderson, Plessinger. Like
yeah. I mean, I mean, the names on this list are basically the same names. You know, there's 6 guys that make up this list of 5 riders. And that's, I think, starting to be your 6 guys are Roczen, Sexton, Barsha, Hill, Cooper, and Cooper Webb.
Yeah, and I mean, it's crazy that Malcolm's not in there when like Malcolm won a race just recently and in such a dominant way. It's great. Like, you know, what activates these guys, what brings them a good night versus not having a good night is just kind of interesting. Let's talk about Roczen though. Like, how was he on starts? Do we have that information?
Yeah, he had a poor second race start. I think if he would have got a better first or second race start, he would have had the overall. First race looked great, won the race, you know. Second race, I believe he got third race he got third. That second race just kind of threw him out of the race, unfortunately. I mean, he still got second overall. He's still finishing in the top 5 the most. I mean, you throw out that Tampa race and he's been in the top 5 every single weekend.
Yeah, it's
lots of podiums.
Yeah, like he seems totally fine with it. And I mean, I wonder, he said in his post-race interview that he's just lacking tenths. And I wonder like how much he's lacking those tenths versus just keeping some on reserve. Like 7 races in, 10 races to go. That's a lot of racing, and just surviving that long right now feels like a really good strategy, and getting podiums. Like maybe he's got those tenths on reserve and he just doesn't need to pull it out yet. Or
yeah, I'm not. This is by far I think the best season Roczen's had, you know, maybe ever. I mean, he was looking unstoppable before he broke his arms. I'm sure we all think he was going to win the championship that year, but you know, in terms of just a week to week performance that he's having, you know, if we don't have Tampa, he's a points leader.
Yeah, where Chin came off the bike.
Yeah, I mean, he lost for, you know, basically 25 points in Tampa, and he's only 16 down. So he would have the points lead, and he have a pretty solid points lead at that.
Well, it's incredible. I think that he might be. There's more. Like there might be a lot more Roczen that we're just not even seeing yet because now's not the time to peak. I don't know, but it's fun to.
Yeah, I think
him there. I'm so glad to have Roczen there, and he makes this whole thing way more interesting. So this is,
you know, as RC says, and RC says the championship starts at Daytona, and we know historically Webb struggles at Daytona, just on speedway tracks in general.
I don't think that's true though, is it? I think he's got really good. I think he said in his post-race interview that if Eli wasn't there, he'd have multiple wins at Daytona. So I think he's been on the podium a lot of times at Daytona.
I mean, we're going to see a first-time winner no matter what.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
But you know, I'd have to go pull it up. A little while ago, I went and ranked riders by their average finish position based on stadium location. Let me pull up Webb's real quick. So you're right. Speedways is a 2.9. His average finish position is 2.9. Sexton's a 3.1. So Sexton and Webb are equally tied going into Speedways. I don't know why my memory served me incorrect there, but that's why we let the data do the talking.
Yeah, we've got like probably the race, the favorite for this next weekend is probably Webb. I've seen Roczen do, just from memory. This is just from memory, but I think I've seen Roczen come really close to winning a few times, but at Daytona particularly.
I predict that our podium is not going to be Roczen, Webb, Sexton.
Okay, what are you? Sorry, we're sticking to the stats, but I just want to hear this. What is the?
Oh, I just don't. I think one of those guys is unfortunately. I think they're just one of them's gonna have a poor night at Daytona.
Okay.
Yeah.
Daytona seems to take. I'm not saying they're going to get injured, but just like an 8th place type finish.
Well, I hope.
That's my bold prediction going into
Yeah.
Daytona.
Yeah, maybe this season, like prior to this call, Eric and I were talking about how Supercross kind of becomes a foregone conclusion, at least the guy who's kind of going to win or most likely to win the championship towards the end. So maybe the last, say 5 rounds, typically it's kind of just a waiting game, and everybody kind of has a clear picture of who that champion's going to be. And maybe this year is with everybody still kind of in it, and maybe that goes more down to the wire this year, where we kind of have a lot more battling deeper into the season. And like you say, maybe Roxon's still in it late, and a lot of these guys are still competing.
Yeah, that would be the best outcome for sure. Webb goes over the berm in qualifying, hurts his wrist a little bit or his hand a little bit, something like that. Like it, not even racing, and so many things could happen. So yeah, I really hope that these guys stay in it. This will be fun because this has been fun racing. Sexton makes it entertaining.
Yeah. I think it's.
We have Sexton to thank for this close race right now, because if he won Tampa, he obviously had the speed to win Detroit. Should have taken the overall here in Arlington. He'd have a solid 20-point lead right now.
Yep,
And
20 points.
Instead he's 5 down.
Let's get into the vision thing to not make this too long. We wanted to keep it in.
We could talk about the 250s, but it's just Deegan. The dude was on fire. He probably wasn't going to win the race 1 until Smith went down. Unfortunately, we hope he heals up pretty quickly from that. Hate to see more guys go out, but if we're not talking about Deegan, we're talking about Yamahas. They have a stranglehold now on that 250 West division. Deegan, Moseman, Davies, all looking solid for Star. Shock, came out and shocked us all.
Yeah, and a Yamaha too, right? It was a Yamaha sweep.
Yep.
Even though
it was a Yamaha sweep. We learned that Beaumer had popped his shoulder out in his practice crash. Shimoda's dealing with some injuries as well. Unfortunately, I think this is now Deegan's show. He made me eat my words last week when I said I don't think he's the strongest rider in the 250 West Coast. He just came out and dominated it, and he is the guy now.
Well, I hope it stays that way. I think Daytona will probably be a good track for him too.
He's not racing Daytona.
He's not Daytona though. Yeah, East Coast.
Shock.
Shock is 450, so we get to see Shock, even though he's
racing West on the 250 though.
He's going to ride Daytona in the 450 class on a 250.
Exciting.
Yeah.
And then we go to an East-West shootout in Indy, I think, after that.
East-West shootout, yep. Okay, here we go. I was having trouble getting the mirroring to turn on for the app. All right, I'll have that ready. I have that ready right now. But let's just call out a couple things. We got just a bunch of different people that we definitely want to see in here. We probably don't want to see just a Deegan run away with everything, but Shimoda showing up again. Look, he looked really sharp.
He did. He can. I think he's at the point where he should be a podium threat moving forward, I think.
Yeah, and he got this doesn't come out. This is just what we were looking at, Eric, offline, but in race 1, I keep hitting the wrong button. In race 1, Shimoda got the fastest single time through this corner.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
So this is showing average fastest, which was Smith, but he had the fastest single time through that corner. It was pretty cool. So Shimoda, corner speed, lap 1, race 1. Must have been
what was true to me was Davies' whoop speed. The kid is absolutely fearless right now.
Oh yeah, I think there was like back-to-back tries to the whoops. One time he got really been out of shape, and then next lap he just doesn't even care, just back to going for it. Barely saves one, and then
that save. The save was impressive.
Yeah,
really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just go for it. Yep. Well, he's going to be there. I mean, if he can stay healthy, like years to come, he's going to be there. He's going to be fun to watch. Anything else to call out on this side of things?
Don't think so.
All right. Well, let's bring up the asset, the other vision asset that we have. We have Sexton versus Webb. So kind of have this. All right, let's go back to the beginning of where we have this. All right.
And this is practice.
This is qualifying, correct? So qualifying. And these
two were pretty close in qualifying all day during qualifying.
Yeah. And Sexton overall was faster for qualifying. He had the best qualifying lap by just a little bit. So this is the over here to the left here is the finish line. So this is landing from the finish line, and then we're kind of going into the lap there. Mm-hmm. So first of all, like we just look at this corner here, and I'm gonna make a note here, but notice who's like cutting down early in corners, which is definitely something that I think benefited Webb for this series, for this race. And yeah, so that'll be one of the things we'll look at. And yeah, just a little bit of, see if you just tell me to pause if you guys are seeing anything that you want to pause on.
I mean, that sand section was just so gnarly, and what I loved about it, it looked like they took the tractors over it after each race, and so each race got its own set of lines developed through that sand. Yeah. Sometimes the inside was way faster, sometimes the outside was way faster, which made this little like 5-pack section after the sand really, really cool, because we were seeing different passing opportunities because of the sand being so different each race.
Yeah, well, I felt like I was seeing a better line on the outside, and maybe this contributes to some of the inconsistency that you mentioned earlier. But if someone's on the outside line, then you got to take inside, and it just
I think that outside line set them up better because they were able to do like a double triple or a triple double depending on riders around them. But you'll see here they'll roll and then do double double, which was definitely slower.
Well, check this out. This is where Webb comes out of the sand. They both take the same line through the inside, and up to this point, Sexton's a little bit faster. He jumps a little bit further into the sand.
Yeah, and Sexton was super quick in the sand.
So they both take this inside, and Webb.
Oh, so Webb got the double out of the corner.
Double out. So yeah, jumping from here to basically here, so zoomed out you can hardly see it. But so totally different lines. And then let's see, is Webb doing a triple?
Webb should double triple, I would imagine. That's what they were.
Jeez, this is not.
I do feel like it seemed like the outside was the faster line later. I don't know why, but I feel like the latter half of the races, the outside line seemed like the fast line. And
yeah, definitely did. I'm wondering if that jump phase got so rutted up that they had to single it.
Yeah, because early I do agree that the inside looked like the faster line in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and you can see too how much faster that double triple was that Webb just did. Yeah, I mean, he was down 0.18 exiting the sand and down to 0.13 by the time he lands. That's half a tenth right there. And so when they're taking the outside, it allowed them, I think, to get a consistent drive through that 5-pack, which was just overall faster. I mean, heck, he's continuing that momentum through the corner, and now they're dang near even back to where we started almost.
Yeah, these 0.12 seconds improvement for Webb just from that corner.
Yeah, and it's continuing here.
Same line.
And then equal. Wow. Yeah. So I mean that double triple allowed Webb to gain back all his time. And if they were equal in going into the sand, he would then have the lead.
Yeah, and I just look at I think that's Sexton cutting down a little bit shorter into the corner.
Mhm.
Go through this flat
This
section.
this corner right here that they just went through, I saw a lot of speed opportunity during the broadcast. The preferred line seemed to go straight through the middle of that roller, but it seemed like when guys took a little bit of a shallower line into that roller, it was faster. I mean, we saw a lot of passes happen right there in the race, and I don't know why they didn't continue taking that line because they were able to, sneak in there, but I guess it's easier to go where the ruts are.
I mean, I think Davies was on the inside a lot there, right?
Mhm.
Somebody was on the inside quite a bit in that corner.
I love this kind of riding here where they're like standing, going over, just absorbing that first roller, and then
Yeah, that bike doesn't even, Sexton's bike hardly even moves.
yeah, it's incredible. But I love watching that. I love to. I mean, they're both like so cleanly downsighting everything in this section. But so check this out. Webb's faster by 0.03 at this point. So he's gained back that 0.2 he lost. And look at this. Like, I feel like there's a difference between the bikes right here. Look at
Rebound. The rebound looks different on the fork.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah,
does.
Sexton has his bike dialed for rhythm sections.
He does, yeah. I mean, like, I swear I can't quite pinpoint exactly how this happens, but I feel like Webb is higher. They're both on the same line on that jump, right next to the right next to the cuff blocks, and I just really feel like Webb is springing up higher through this section. He's keeping his. I mean, look how far Sexton is standing up on the bike.
Yeah, Sexton's in a complete neutral riding position right there.
Yeah, they both downside this really clean, which.
Sexton commented on Race Day Live that he likes his bike really soft, or he thinks he likes it really soft compared to the average Supercross rider. And I'm wondering if that's giving him that, like, he's just able to control it through the rhythm lanes.
It's something is different right here. Like, Webb is really getting more pop than Sexton. And they're like, I mean, they're doing everything the same, but Webb comes into this corner 1/10 of a second slower.
Mm-hmm.
They both
down
this
momentum, and then they'll do they both triple it here?
Yeah,
looks like it just for that seat bounce.
That seat bounce that Sexton is doing. What is going on?
There's some torque going through the bars. It looks like on that one. Pulling on that.
Mm-hmm. And this was actually one of the few times where we saw where that triple was so much faster than like doubling through that section.
And look at who cuts down earlier in the corner again. It's just the corner that this is not that corner that Sexton run in the back of Webb, but cuts down early, and yeah, Sexton is just that's all we got. So this is them hitting the on-off, which you guys saw at least one time. Roxon cleared that, but
yeah, the wheel tap's so cool.
I love that. But yeah, that's what we got. That's the breakdown on Vision.
That's a great asset. I love when this is a great example where I'm sure both of these two laps, or these guys' laps, if you look at the timing, they're probably like a quarter second different, but we can see that the actual difference in speed is like a full second because, Webb's gained time right after the sand and made up a whole bunch of time, and then Sexton immediately erased it. This is the type of stuff that you don't see, and when you just look at lap times, you're like, oh, he must just be faster everywhere, but that's rarely the case, and we see that the yo-yo effect really play out in this asset here.
Yep.
Yeah, and bike setup and how it benefits like one rider or the other in a particular section or a particular portion of the track.
Yeah, it's these guys this is crazy stuff. Would love to just have a portion of this skill set that I could call on for the weekend at the track. Beautiful riding. Well, that's it, guys. Let's call it this one. And any final thoughts? Awesome race. Like we
No,
thought
it was.
the fun was going to be over when Jet and Eli left and it's not. This is fun. Really fun racing. Awesome stuff.
Yeah, looking forward to next week.
Yes.